We all know that the coronavirus pandemic is beginning to ebb, at least in the United States. What we don't know is, what should we do next? There are those who argue we need to listen to the scientists, the experts, our political leaders, and follow the courses that they set. There are others who say, no, we really need to trust the American people, that they can make individually their own decisions, which will be sensible. That's the debate. Now, what I want to talk about in this video is to look at both those propositions. Should we listen to the experts, or should we let the American people make the decisions on their own? Should we trust the American people? Can we trust the American people? I have no doubt that in a country of 315 million people, if we allow these people to make their own choices about how they should act, how they should behave, how they should look out for themselves and others, that there will be people who will be careless. There will be people who will be just stupid. I have no doubt that if we allow the American people individually to make their own choices about how to handle this, we will end up with some people being infected. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And if some people are infected, some of those people will end up in intensive care units. And if some people end up in intensive care units, some of those people will die. So there's no doubt that if we allow individual Americans to make their own decisions about how to handle this, that some people will be infected and die. Their own personal decisions about what they should do. Then you have to rely on the experts. It goes without saying. The experts, scientists, and politicians. Now, as I just finished saying, if you allow the American people to make decisions on their own, some people will get sick and some people will die. But if we rely on the experts, the scientists, and the politicians, does that mean nobody's going to die? I mean, have the decisions and the policies recommended by the experts and the scientists and pursued by our politicians worked out all that well? I mean, after all, how many people have already died? Tens of thousands. And that was with a lockdown and with everything else. And those lockdowns usually came too late. So there is plenty to question about, the experts, scientists, and the politicians. We know that some governors in New York, New Jersey, I think Connecticut, Pennsylvania, made horrible decisions. Let's just take New York, which is about the worst. More people died in nursing homes in New York so far than the entire state of Florida. Let me just repeat that. More people died in nursing homes in New York State than have died of all types of people in the state of Florida, which actually has a larger population and which had an initially pretty rough outbreak in Miami. If you look at what Cuomo did, why did he do it? Why did Mario Cuomo, just to use the example of one governor, the one who's on the news all the time, why did he insist that patients who had been sent to the hospital with COVID, if they didn't need to move up the ladder of care into intensive care, if they were stable or recovering, he decreed that they would have to be taken back into their nursing homes. And they were, by state decree. Over 10,000 people died in New York in nursing homes. Now, why did Andrew Cuomo do that? Did he hate old people? Is he stupid? No, and no. Andrew Cuomo, the governor, I'm thinking back to his father, who was governor when I was younger. Andrew Cuomo did that because of the recommendations of the experts and because of the information he was getting from a scientist, that there was going to be this huge flood of people heading into the intensive care units of New York and needing respirators. Remember when he said he needed, what was it, 40? He needed 40,000 respirators and he only got 400 from the Trump administration. Remember when they built the extra hospitals in New York? They sent up the hospital ship, none of which did much of anything because they didn't need it. I mean, this country is flush with respirators right now, and we're under contract with these companies. I think they're making like 100,000 more a month. They're going to be stored in warehouses. We made far more respirators than we needed. Is that because, Cuomo's stupid, Trump's stupid? No, it's because the experts were making all these predictions about how many people were going to be sick, how many people were going to die. So what Mario Cuomo was doing, in my opinion, somebody could, if it would be nice if some reporter would ever ask him about this, but they don't do that. They talk about the size of his nose. My guess is Mario Cuomo made what you might call a triage decision. We're not going to have enough facilities to treat everybody who's coming in, so let's send the nursing home people back and they'll have to take their chances because we got to be prepared for this big flood of people that in the end never came. So now it looks like Mario Cuomo and some of these other governors made horrible decisions. And they did make horrible decisions. And in a sense, they are responsible for all these deaths. But they made the horrible decisions because they were getting bad information from the scientists, bad information from the so-called experts. And if you look at just today, I posted a piece on Facebook about North Carolina, like cutting by 60%, I think it was, the expected number of deaths that are going to come from this. They're constantly revising down what they think because their data was bad and their extrapolations from that and their modeling were bad. And they have a stupid modeling system that's it's very static. If you double X, you'll get double X. So sometimes, you double things, you don't get two of them. It's not the way things work all the time. It's not like pure math. There's, real life is dynamic and things change. So if you look at what the experts did, and there are plenty of other examples I can go into, they've killed, I would argue, far more people than some individual who decides to, take himself to the beach when he's got the sniffles could ever kill. Even a mass murderer, the guy a few years ago in Orlando who shot up the gay club, killed 60 people. I mean, individuals can't do that much harm compared to governments. How many people did Adolf Hitler kill in the concentration camps? 11 million, 6 million Jews, 5 million other people. How many millions of people did Stalin kill? How many millions of people did Mao kill? When government gets into this business and they make mistakes or they make horrible decisions, shitloads of people die. As an individual, the best you can do is maybe a couple dozen people you can kill. And I think it's going to be like this with COVID too. Bad decisions at the top will kill far more people than some individual decision taken by some schmuck somewhere to go and head into the store and not wear a mask when he's got the sniffles. The bottom line we have to face here is that our public officials, armed with bad data from experts and scientists, have made horrible decisions throughout. It's not just, you've got the nursing homes. Do you remember when Nancy Pelosi was in Chinatown telling everybody there was nothing to worry, come on out and celebrate in Chinatown for the Chinese New Year? That was a bad decision. That was a bad recommendation. Why did she make that? Is she a fool? Well, you could argue somebody watching this will probably think she is. But setting that aside, she was basing what she was saying on what was the World Health Organization saying. There's no evidence this is transmissible from animals to humans. Well, it was transmissible. And basically who bought whatever the Chinese were telling them, which was a lie. And anybody who watched YouTube knew it was a lie because they had seen these things. My wife is Korean. She's from Korea. She watches the South Korean news in the morning, and she was telling me back in January about what was going on in China. Because the South Koreans knew. One of the reasons, why are the South Koreans, why were they so on top of this? Because their media was watching what was going on in China because it's close. What was our media doing back in January? What were they focused on? Impeachment. So while everybody's talking about impeachment, she's telling me there's this thing coming and people are really dying and they're worried about it in Korea. And that's how that happened. You had de Blasio in New York telling people the subways were safe. Go ride the subway, go to the Chinatown parade, go to the theater, take in a movie. Here's a good recommendation. He was actually recommending movies for New Yorkers to go see because they had nothing to worry about. Now, the thing is, why were they saying these things? It's not because, even if they are stupid, that's not why they were saying them. They were saying them because those were the recommendations they were getting from the experts. Even Dr. Fauci. You go back into January, you can find all kinds of video on the web of him saying, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it, it'll be under control, it's not that bad, the Chinese have assured me, World Health Organization has assured me. Dead wrong. Now, you can even make the case for Fauci. Well, why was he? Well, he's believing what who's telling him. He's believing what the Chinese are telling him. So all these bad decisions are based on bad information. But again, my point is, that's why we should not trust the experts, the scientists, and our political leaders. Because they misled us in the beginning. They made bad policies along the way. All based on bad or incomplete data. Despite the fact that we can demonstrate conclusively that throughout this pandemic, the scientists, the experts, and our political leaders have often made horrible decisions that resulted in the deaths of thousands, tens of thousands of people. Despite that, we're being told now, can't trust the American people to make a decision. We need to trust these very people who, as I've been saying, shouldn't be trusted. I'd like to conclude with a quotation from somebody whose books I've been reading for decades. It's Jacob Bronowski. If you know who he is, you probably know him from The Ascent of Man. It was a PBS TV series that ran back in the 70s. It's excellent. But he wrote a bunch of books, and he was what most people would consider a polymath. I mean, he was by training a mathematician. He worked with physics. He got into history and philosophy. I mean, he was into everything. And he was a very expressive guy, a guy capable of taking complex ideas and trying to explain them in simple, understandable ways. And he was very good at it. But this is a quote from something he wrote somewhere along the line that I had. The aristocracy of intellect is a belief which can only destroy the civilization that we know. If we are anything, we must be a democracy of the intellect. And that's basically what I'm arguing here. The experts, the scientists, do not have a monopoly. They are not the aristocracy of thinking, and at least they should not be in this country. But that's what they've made themselves. And that's what our politicians have made them. What we need is a democracy of the intellect, which is hard to do in this country because if you post things on YouTube or on the internet, you're likely to get banned. I mean, there was one point on Facebook, I think I had like a dozen posts taken down. There was a point where if you mentioned COVID-19 and China in the same post, bingo, you were flagged. I just saw a report today, the North Carolina report, that the statistics that looked like they were right was the ones published by some doctor at Stanford whose YouTube videos were taken down. I mean, that's why we can't have a democracy of the intellect, because even if you're not a scientist, you only get to see one side. You only get to hear one case being made. If somebody makes a case that doesn't agree with the case, you're gone. If on Facebook, YouTube, if you go outside the argument of the World Health Organization, they can flag your videos. And I've seen it happen. It's happened to some of my posts in places. But we need a democracy of intellect. And I would point out that, I mean, people know this, and it comes from Google and Apple data, that people were responding to this pandemic before it was declared a pandemic and before it was shut down by shutting themselves down. People were staying at home, people weren't traveling as much, people weren't going out. And Apple and Google basically follow you by your phone, and they can tell where people are moving around. And people stopped moving around like in late February, early March. It started. I can remember, I came back from North Carolina March 10th, and that week, because of health problems I have, I think I went to the store. I've been to the store maybe once or twice since then, unless I had to go get like blood tests. I was self-quarantining before the county and the state locked us down. I was doing it on my own, and loads of other people were. And loads of other people now are coming out of quarantine despite what their leaders are telling them. And Apple and Google know that too. They can see people starting to travel around. People are starting to move around again. Now, in some cases, that leads to protests. In some cases, that leads to arrests. In some cases, you just had the case in New Jersey of the Belmar, New Jersey, which I used to go there, where they not only shut down a gym, they're threatening to take the property from the owner for violating these rules. And you're not hearing a lot about it in the media, but there are a lot of court cases going on, heading to the judges to decide. Because in many of these states, these governors have exceeded their ability to lock people down. So as I've been saying in this video, we need to place more trust in the American people. Because if we're going to trust the experts, the scientists, and the politicians, their track record sucks, to put it bluntly.